Morville City looked like this in the original Hoenn games, and in the remakes, they turned it into a shopping center so big it functioned as a city. In Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, Morville came to perfection, and I think most fans agree that Morville got a much needed upgrade in those games. It looked like this compared to this. So naturally, when playing through was supposed to be the definitive Hoenn game, you would expect Morville City to look like the upgrade, not the downgrade original. Pokemon Delta Emerald is a ROM hack which aims to be the third Hoenn remake game that we never got. We got Omega Ruby, we got Alpha Sapphire, and a lot of people were under the impression that we were gonna get a Delta Emerald. It only made sense. Why remake only the original two Hoenn games and not the third one if you're not going to incorporate everything? Historically, whenever the Pokemon Company have released games that were remakes of a previous generation, they will only release 2 remakes as opposed to 3 to match the 3 original games. But they do that because they incorporate all the third version's enhancements into the 2 remakes. For example, when doing Fire Red and Leaf Green, they didn't need to remake Yellow because Fire Red and Leaf Green had a lot of what Yellow brought to the table. You feel me? Though we do have Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee, which are specifically like Pokemon Yellow remakes, but you get the idea that they incorporated enough from Yellow that we didn't really need a Pokemon Yellow remake, not really. Same with Heart Gold and Soul Silver. We don't need a Crystal remake because Heart Gold and Soul Silver, they are Crystal remakes. They incorporate a lot from Crystal, so there's no real need to have another remake. And then after Heart Gold and Soul Silver, if I'm not mistaken, Oras, Omega Ruby, Alpha Sapphire were the very next remakes. And instead of copying what Heart Gold and Soul Silver did in terms of maintaining enough of the third game so you don't need to remake it, they didn't do that. Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire are very specifically remakes of Ruby and Sapphire, whereas Heart Gold and Soul Silver, you could kind of play them interchangeably. They were remakes of Gold and Silver, but they were also very much remakes of Crystal, and they were all so much so the same game that it didn't really matter, but it is a lot more noticeable, the differences between Emerald and the 2 under games, if you will. The biggest of which being the Battle Frontier, an entire post-game section that was present in the original Emerald game, but it wasn't present in the original Ruby and Sapphire. So when it came to the remakes, what did they do? Did they keep the obvious upgrade from the third game and put it in both remakes like they should have? No, they didn't bring back the Battle Frontier. They completely remade again Ruby and Sapphire, which meant that any of the cool things that Emerald brought to the table was left out. They didn't do that with Heart Gold and Soul Silver. They brought back all the cool stuff that Crystal had to offer. But for Ruby and Sapphire's remakes, they just didn't do that. That left a lot of people feeling like Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire could never be the definitive Hoenn game because they don't have a definitive Hoenn feature, the Battle Frontier. So a lot of fans would argue that if it comes to the Hoenn region, the best way to play through it is actually to play through Emerald to this day, the Game Boy Advance game, because at least then you get all the cool stuff, plus you get I lost my train of thought, oh my gosh, plus you get I'm gonna have to cut this out, the Battle Frontier, fucking hell. You get all the cool stuff you'd expect to get from Emerald, plus you get the Battle Frontier. So a lot of people would say just play Emerald. But then a lot of people would say play Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, because even though you don't get the Battle Frontier, you get the upgraded graphics if you care about that. And you also get a bunch of other features like flying over Hoenn, things that you can't do in the original. So it goes back and forth in my research, general consensus. Let me know what you guys think below. Are the Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire games the best way to play through the Hoenn region? Or do you think that you should stick with Emerald? Say you could only play one, or say you could only be bothered to play one because you don't like Hoenn that much, so you don't want to play through 2 different games, you just want to play through one. Would you recommend them play Emerald, or would you recommend them play Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire? I think the good news is you can't really go wrong. They're all great ways to experience Hoenn, so you can't really go wrong, I think, no matter what you pick. I look to a ROM hack because that's the kind of guy I am. And when I came across Delta Emerald, again, it was supposed to be a ROM hack that was the perfect way to play through Hoenn. It had the same storyline from the remakes, R.O.W.E, except, catered to also fit within an Emerald format. And it also kept a lot of the original stuff from Emerald. I mean, this was a Game Boy Advance Emerald ROM hack, so graphically, it looked like Pokemon Emerald. But whether or not you prefer these graphics or these graphics is kind of subjective. It's not really the main thing here. The point of the game was to offer you the R.O.W.E storyline, which is only slightly different from the original anyway. Give you all the new characters, give you all the new sprites, give you all the new Pokemon, give you all the new mechanics present in the R.O.W.E games, plus the Battle Frontier. That's what this was supposed to be. And that's what this person, the people who made this ROM hack, they feel like that's what the definitive Hoenn experience would have been. Everything R.O.W.E had to offer in terms of story and characters, plus the addition of the Battle Frontier. So I'm playing through Delta Emerald, supposed to be the definitive Hoenn game. I can't decide between playing through the original Emerald or playing through Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, so I played Delta Emerald. It's literally supposed to be the best of two worlds, or the best of both worlds, sorry. Separately, I'm playing through Rayquaza's open world Emerald, Pokemon R.O.W.E, which is a separate ROM hack, which lets you play through the Hoenn region, but in an open world format where you can challenge any gym in any order, and they scale to however many badges you have in terms of difficulty. A lot like Pokemon Crystal Clear, which is my favorite Pokemon game. So I was quite excited to play through Pokemon R.O.W.E, and eventually, in my Pokemon R.O.W.E playthrough, I made it to Morville City, and in my Pokemon Delta Emerald playthrough, I also made it to Morville City. And that's when I noticed something very interesting. Again, the best version of Morville City has to go to the R.O.W.E games, where it presents as like a giant shopping center and it looks really cool. Much better than the way it originally appeared in the Gen 3 Hoenn games, where it was just a very basic looking town. You'd expect, if Delta Emerald is supposed to be this perfect version of the Hoenn region, that it would use the upgraded version of Morville City as this Morville City. Nope. I got to Morville City and was very disappointed in Delta Emerald to see that it looked just like it did in Emerald. In fact, some people complain about Delta Emerald and say that it's just too much like Emerald, which is kind of a weird complaint because it is a remake of Emerald, except it's on the exact same console as the original game. So how different really would it be? But I have to agree, it definitely is way too much like the original Emerald game, to the point where it's like, yeah, I guess if you really want that R.O.W.E feel, play Delta Emerald, but like, it is very much just like the original Emerald. Would I recommend someone play Delta Emerald over the original Emerald? Maybe. I don't know if I can 100% say yes. I think maybe for the sake of modernity and the fact that it probably has quite a lot of modern features, I'd say yeah. I think the difficulty is normal on that game. Again, I didn't play it that much because once I got to Morville City and saw that they didn't update Morville City to match the other R.O.W.E games, how can this be an R.O.W.E level game if it doesn't have the new Morville City? And I appreciate that would have been a lot of work, but I've seen ROM hackers do crazy stuff, and I don't want to talk too much smack because I'm not much of a ROM hacker myself, but the Sword and Shield GBA demake that I already made a video on really blew my mind and showed me just how, like, what's possible when it comes to doing ROM hacks. You can recreate or create damn near anything you want. So I know it's possible for them to have updated Morville City to look more similar to how it looks in the 3DS games. I mean, this is a GBA game that's supposed to feel like a 3DS game. Specifically, the R.O.W.E games which have the shopping mall Morville City. So I was very disappointed to see that in Delta Emerald, but gave them the benefit of the doubt that that might have been too much work until I played through Pokemon R.O.W.E. I got to Morville City, and even though Pokemon R.O.W.E doesn't claim to be Delta Emerald or even the perfect way to play through Hoenn, guess what they did with Morville City and Pokemon R.O.W.E? They updated it. It looks like the shopping center, and though it's not a perfect one-to-one and it doesn't seem to be as big as the 3DS version, that is fine. It is giving the same vibes. It looks really cool. It feels like a cool new experience. It's a change of pace, and it's a million times better than how it originally looked in Emerald? How is it that the game that's supposed to be Delta Emerald is failing on something that it should pass on, and this other game that isn't claiming to be Delta Emerald got it right? I'm playing through a GBA game, but I feel like I'm still getting a bit of an ORAS experience because of things like that. It has the updated Morville City, and it looks, to me anyway, just like the 3DS version, with the same places that you can visit and go to. That, to me, is really cool and a great attention to detail. It proves that such a thing was possible. If they're still working on it, I think Delta Emerald should make that a priority, honestly, because it broke the illusion for me straight away, and I was like, this does just feel like I'm playing through Emerald. In the remakes, Morville City was remade. So if you're gonna make a Delta Emerald game which is supposed to feel like the other remakes, you gotta be consistent. You gotta have the same looking Morville City. Here you have Pokémon R.O.W.E, which has the updated Morville City and looks more like a Delta Emerald than Delta Emerald. It was at that point that I decided to just stick with Pokémon R.O.W.E and just make that my Hoenn experience. For context, I tried to play through Emerald as a kid, and I hate to say it, but I just couldn't get into it. I appreciate that the Hoenn games are some people's favorite, and the Hoenn starters are some people's favorite. Look, everyone's favorite Pokemon is someone else's least favorite, and vice versa. So what you love, I might not, and what I love, you might not, whatever. I'm not a big fan of the Hoenn starters. I gotta be honest, man. You know, the Fire Chicken, you'd think I'd like it. I like Blaziken, I do, but I don't like the first two forms enough to sit through it. I'm sorry. I'm not a big Mudkip fan. I know it has its fans. I'm just not a big fan of its design or whatever the hell it's supposed to be. And then, last but not least, the Water starter. I'm drawing a bit of a mental blank right now. Not to be disrespectful. No, Mudkip is water. Fire. The grass one. The grass one for Hoenn. Is it Trico? It is Trico, right? Yeah, it's Trico. Trico. Probably the coolest out of the three. I like Grovyle. I like Ash's Trico in the anime, but still not a Pokemon that I find cool enough to be on my team. Look, no disrespect to the Trico lovers and that. I appreciate, you know, everyone's subjective opinion, but the starters, they're just not my favorite. Then the region itself, I'd never really seen too much of it, to be honest, but just upon a first glance, I wasn't too into it. You know, as a kid, I really quickly came to the realization that every Pokemon game is just the same, but in a different country. So it's like, I didn't feel like I had to play every single one. There were gonna be some games, design-wise, which I liked, and some which I didn't. It'd be hard for them to get it right every single time for me personally. So I'm sure there are other people who have like a region that they don't really care for because they think the region design looks boring or sounds boring or the starters look or sound boring, whatever. I still want to give every region a chance, which is why I was looking to replay Hoenn now as an adult, but as a kid, I couldn't get into it, man. I didn't like the starters, I didn't like the look of the region, and like the infamous IGN review, too much water. I have to be honest, never been a big fan of the surfing parts of the Pokemon games, and looking at that map and seeing how much was gonna inevitably come, I just wasn't into it. You feel me? I'm sorry. I also feel like the tutorial felt quite long, and you know, I hate that you can't skip the tutorials in Pokemon games. It's kind of long to sit through for the first hour or so, just doing stuff you know how to do. It's just a bit long. So no disrespect to people who are Gen 3ers and who love the Hoenn games specifically. I mean, I'm high-key a Gen 3er, but that's more so for Fire Red and just how many Fire Red or Fire Red Romhacks I've played. So I do love me Gen 3, the graphics and everything, but I just could never get into Hoenn as a kid, though I love the anime Pokemon Advance. Now as an adult, I decided to give Hoenn another chance, but I couldn't play through the original Emerald for the same reasons that I couldn't as a kid. So that's why I looked to Romhacks like Delta Emerald, which was supposed to be the definitive Hoenn experience, but I had more fun playing through Pokemon R.O.W.E. What is Pokemon R.O.W.E? Like I said, it's open world, a lot like Crystal Clear. In fact, it's a lot like Crystal Clear. So I'm gonna compare it. And you should watch my previous videos on Crystal Clear if you want to know more about what that is, but that's an open world game set in Kanto Johto. Pokemon R.O.W.E is very similar. For one, both games have a character customization, but in Crystal Clear, despite that being a Game Boy Color ROM hack, it's a lot more detailed than the character customization we get in the Game Boy Advance Pokemon R.O.W.E. In the Game Boy Color game Crystal Clear, you can pick between like 10 different sprites. You can use colors like sliders to specifically change each part of your character sprite's color, including skin tone. So you can really make a character that really feels or looks like you. You can be a Team Rocket Grunt, you can pick that sprite, guy, girl, whatever. I think it's really well detailed, especially for a Game Boy Color game, and you really can customize your character in a really fun way. In Pokemon R.O.W.E. is quite limited. You also pick between different character sprites, but you can only recolor them so much. You can't change skin tone, which is lame. You can't use like a sliding scale, and unlike in Crystal Clear, you can't even see your character when you're customizing them. You go into a menu on the pause button, you pick what you want, then you have to leave the pause menu to see what your character looks like and go back and forth until you get it right. Whereas in Crystal Clear, it's just a normal character customization. You can clearly see what you're doing while you're doing it. So again, strange that a Game Boy Color game has, I think, a much better character customization as opposed to a Game Boy Advance game. But hey, I'm not a ROM hacker maker. I appreciate these things are hard to do. But there are other things that I have to say make Crystal Clear better than Pokemon R.O.W.E. A big one, the story. People argue Crystal Clear has no story. I completely disagree. The game is open world, so you can go do what you want. But if you talk to the NPCs and explore the world, it's very clear that this game, Crystal Clear, takes place several years after the original Johto games. As in, Red's already defeated Team Rocket and become champion. Blue's already become champion before Red. Blue becomes champ, then Red, and then Gold, with Lance in between. So that's all happened, all of that has happened already. So you're in a version of Kanto Johto where Team Rocket have long been expelled. Blue's become the Viridian gym leader and been there a while. Red is still out in the mountains training or whatever. And the world, or at least Kanto Johto, is in a peaceful place. You know the story. That's the story. But in Pokemon R.O.W.E., there really is no story because they haven't updated any of the NPCs and what they say. I mean, some have been updated, but generally it's as if someone was playing through Pokemon Emerald and then halfway through the story they've hacked the game to make it open world so you can go anywhere. But when you speak to characters, they talk to you as if you've been completing the normal Emerald storyline, which is impossible to complete in Pokemon R.O.W.E. So you'll go to the first time to a city and a Team Aqua Grunt will be like, I'm the one that you defeated earlier. Here's an item because you were so good. And it's like, you've never met this man. You've never fought this man, but they had to keep that in because you need that item, I guess, potentially. And it's like, it breaks the illusion. It makes the game feel so weird, especially as someone who never played through the Hoenn story before. All these characters are talking to you and you don't know what they're talking about. You feel me? You talk to a scientist and he's like, oh, things went so wrong at the volcano. I can't believe it. Can you help me? You was there. And I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about because I wasn't there. There's none of that in Crystal Clear. In Crystal Clear, all the NPCs talk and it makes sense what they're saying. There is a story there. The story is that this takes place several years after Gold's adventure. In Pokemon R.O.W.E., it's like, it's weird. It doesn't really make sense. Because it's open world, I've gone to where the Victory Road is and all the characters are congratulating me for getting all the gym badges, but I haven't got all the gym badges. I've just come here because I've come here, So it's just an example of where they haven't updated the NPCs to make it make sense in an open world context. I appreciate that's a lot of hard work and extra steps that maybe they're working on. But again, it is something that Crystal Clear did. I feel like Crystal Clear, the way they did it is they kind of hacked the game at the end of the campaign. And I feel like, wouldn't that have maybe made more sense? I feel like Pokemon R.O.W.E., and I don't know how this stuff works, but it feels like they chose to hack the game halfway through the story. So when you talk to the NPCs out in the world, they're talking to you as if you're halfway through the storyline, but you're not, because you're not doing the storyline. And that's annoying to me. I feel like they should have hacked the game at the end of the story where everything's done already. That maybe would have made more sense. Maybe. I don't know if I'm explaining it well, but you feel it. Like, you'll talk to NPCs, and if you've never played the actual Emerald games or whatever, I think this game should stand on its own 2 feet. I don't think you should have to play Pokemon Emerald to understand this game. So it is just a case of updating the NPCs to say things that are more ambiguous or things that are more, I don't know, just not super specific to the story that I'm not playing. You feel me? Crystal Clear does it well, so there is a way to do it. You feel me? But that is another thing that makes Crystal Clear feel so much more complete and so much more just better, for lack of a better word, you know? You talk to NPCs, it makes sense. But in R.O.W.E, you'll talk to an NPC, they'll be like, oh, remember me from that mission you did earlier? And you're like, no, that just doesn't happen in Crystal Clear. Again, a big difference is that in Crystal Clear, you play as, like, you're very much just you. Because you're not red, you're not gold, you're you. You've come to the Kanto Johto region. You can visit Red's mum in his house. You can visit Gold's mum in, his house. And you can save up and go buy your own house. Your mum isn't in this game on a personal level. Like, I love that. I love that immersion that comes with that. That game, Crystal Clear, really makes it feel like it's you coming into the world of Pokemon. Whereas a lot of the early Pokemon games, without character customization, you feel like you're just playing someone else's story to some extent. And again, with the very limited character customization that's present in Pokemon R.O.W.E, I don't as much feel like I'm playing as me. But that's not even the biggest issue, though. Skin tone changes would have gone a long way. A bigger issue is the fact that you're very clearly playing as the Hoenn protagonist, whose name escapes me right now. So I'm just going to call him Sapphire. But this guy, like, you're playing as him. You go home and it's his mum, you're playing as the Hoenn protagonist very clearly, obviously. And I don't know, I think there was a missed opportunity there. Like in Crystal Clear, if you start in the hometown and you speak to the mother character, it's Red's mum. I feel like Pokemon R.O.W.E would have benefited if when you landed and you speak to, for example, say you choose to start, because you can choose where you start, say you choose to start in the Hoenn hometown and you go speak to the mother, it should be Sapphire's house, not your house. Does that make sense? Again, Crystal Clear makes a clear distinction between the fact that you are not red and you are not gold. You are you. And I think Pokemon R.O.W.E could have benefited from that feeling of you are not playing as May or the dude. Brendan, I think. You're not playing as them. You're playing as yourself, because you can meet Brendan and you can meet May. Same way in Crystal Clear, you can go out and meet Red. You can go out and meet Blue. So you're obviously not them. You can go out and meet Gold and Red. You're not them. So I don't know. That vibe of you are actually a separate character, I think goes a long way. And it would have done Pokemon R.O.W.E a lot of good. So those are some big differences. Again, like, the game just kind of has this weird feeling when you're speaking to the NPCs, and a lot of what they're saying is not really making sense. But most NPCs say generic stuff, that's fine. So it's not that many NPCs, but because I played Crystal Clear, it does really stick out to me. But let's speak about some good things of Pokemon R.O.W.E, because I feel like I've been going on a while about the few things that hold it back. The game is amazing. I had a lot of fun playing it. I love the look of the UI and the menus and the battle scenes. I love the variety of Pokemon you can encounter. I love the team that I was able to build. I had a lot of fun exploring the Hoenn region the way that I liked it. In this game, you don't need any HMs really. You can just surf immediately from the start. You touch water, you start surfing. You get the running shoes from the beginning of the game. Skip the tutorial, which I love. You can rematch gym leaders, which you could also do in Crystal Clear. Again, I have to give the point to Crystal Clear, because in Crystal Clear, once you beat a gym leader, you can immediately re-challenge that gym, and you can choose the difficulty relevant to how many badges you have. So if you have 8 badges, you can choose to fight Brock with an 8-badge team or a 4-badge team. You can go all the way down to 1, but you can only go up to 8 because that's how many badges you have. Unless you have more than 8 badges, then you can go up all the way up to 16 and fight Brock's hardest team as if you had 16 gym badges, or you can go back down to 1. It's a super easy to use system. It's super quick and easy to use. I love it. In Pokemon R.O.W.E, you can't seemingly choose the difficulty. It seems the game just chooses a good difficulty for you based on how strong your team is or how many badges you have. But I don't like that as much. Say you want to train a weak Pokemon. In Crystal Clear, you can take a weak Pokemon that you just caught and you can rematch blue. Even though you have 16 gym badges, you can just rematch blue as if you only had one gym badge, and he'll use his Squirtle and you can use your weak new Pokemon to train. And then once that Pokemon gets strong, you can fight blue with his, badge 16 difficulty, and he'll have his Blastoise and his Mewtwo. And that's really cool, whereas in Pokemon R.O.W.E, you can't choose the difficulty. You just rematch wherever they're at. Again, that means that in Crystal Clear, you can specifically fight Blue's ultimate team specifically as many times as you want, and you know what you're getting, but you have 16 options of teams to pick from. I much prefer that rather than the game just gives you one team each time based on how tough you are. I like to be able to choose. But unlike in Crystal Clear, Pokemon R.O.W.E has one cool feature where you don't have to refight all the gym underlings each time you want to do a rematch with the gym leader, nor do you need to redo the puzzle, which Crystal Clear, unfortunately, you do need to redo the puzzle and the underlings. That can get annoying, and it can put me off wanting to re-challenge certain gyms simply because I can't be bothered to fight their underlings or do the puzzle. So that's why I end up rematching Blue a lot, because he has no puzzle in that game. You could just go fight him straight. He has no underlings either. But in the case of Pokemon R.O.W.E, they have a feature where you can just skip the puzzle and the gym and the underlings. You can go straight to rematch the gym leader, or you can specifically just rematch the underlings. So that is cool. I got to give that to R.O.W.E as a point to them. Both games, once you get a gym badge, someone calls you to let you know that you're doing a good job and what might be an interesting place to go to next. It's an open world game, so a hint as to somewhere cool to go is helpful. And it's cool that both games do it. It means that you do feel a sense of progression when you get gym badges, because again, it's such an open world game with no main quest overtly given to you. So having that reminder that you're making progress with the gym badges is very cool. In Crystal Clear, it's the Pokemon League themselves that call you each time. And in Pokemon R.O.W.E, it's someone called Scott. I might be dumb, but I have no idea who Scott is. Maybe it's the creator of the game, but I think having the Pokemon League calls you makes way more sense than whoever Scott is. But both things serve the same function. It's not really a big complaint, arguably a nitpick, but, again, having it be the Pokemon League in Crystal Clear helps reinforce this feeling that you're just a new trainer trying to complete the gym challenge. You're not trying to save the world or anything like that. That's what I love about Crystal Clear, is that in that game, the story is that you're not trying to save the world, you're not trying to defeat the evil team, you're just trying to win the Pokemon League and live your life. But in Pokemon R.O.W.E, even though you're not trying to save the world, there are a couple people that talk to you as if you are, and it gets a bit weird and confusing and strange, but neither here nor there. The game was super fun. I enjoyed, it's probably the only way that I ever would have played through Hoenn. Being able to skip the HMs and just travel freely, being able to skip the tutorial, being able to catch Pokemon from all generations, so I'm not limited to the Hoenn Pokédex, which I'm not the biggest fan of. Being able to get a completely different starter Pokemon is amazing. Being able to have my mob Espeon, it was a great time. The follower Pokemon, by the way, in this ROM hack in Pokemon R.O.W.E, just like in Crystal Clear, your Pokemon can follow you. I don't think these are nitpicks. I think the following things are kind of important. For one, I love that Pokemon R.O.W.E has following Pokemon, though my Espeon does look massive when it's walking behind me compared to Crystal Clear. That being said, in Pokemon R.O.W.E, the way it works is the game says that they will just choose which Pokemon follows you. From what I can tell, just like in Heart Gold and Soul Silver, the first Pokemon in your party will follow behind you in Pokemon R.O.W.E, so long as, I think, 1, the Pokemon hasn't fainted, and 2, the Pokemon has a following sprite. Because this game has all the Pokemon, I don't think they all have following sprites, which means if the lead Pokemon doesn't have a following sprite, it just won't follow you, and the next Pokemon that does have a sprite will follow you. The game doesn't explicitly tell you this, and I prefer Crystal Clears because obviously in Crystal Clear there's less Pokemon, so all of them have a following sprite. I'm not holding that against Pokemon R.O.W.E. I'm glad that it has more Pokemon. It is a point to Pokemon R.O.W.E that it has more Pokemon in general. That being said, in Crystal Clear you can pick whichever Pokemon you want to follow you. It doesn't have to be the first one in your party. You might not want the first one in your party to follow you because the first one in your party is the first one that gets into fights. But maybe it's not the one you want to send out first in fights, but it is the one that you want to follow you. You like the way it looks when it follows you, but you don't like the way it fights when it starts. But you have no choice. So in Crystal Clear, you have a choice. You can have one Pokemon be the first to fight and a different one follow you. But in Row, if you want your Pokemon to follow you, it has to be in that first slot, which could be to a disadvantage to your battling. So that's not cool. I wish you could pick and the game would just say, sorry, this Pokemon doesn't have a following sprite. It won't work. Or it doesn't even have to give you a warning. You just pick a Pokemon to follow you and it doesn't follow you. And you're like, why is it not working? You'd figure out eventually that it just doesn't work on that one. It doesn't have a sprite to follow you. So you pick a different Pokemon to follow you and it will follow you. I think that's how they should have done it. I see no reason why, if you have Pokemon that can follow you, why you can't just pick the one and have it follow you. And if it can't follow you, then it don't work. Simple. It seems kind of random sometimes which Pokemon it chooses to follow. So I'm not sure I actually understand it. I think how I explained it is how it works, but it could also not work that way. It low-key feels random, the Pokemon it decides to make follow you, and that's kind of annoying. Again, in Crystal Clear, whether or not your Pokemon faints, it still follows you. I prefer that, man, rather than, okay, now I don't know. It's kind of random. You can headcanon it as like, oh, different Pokemon want to go for a walk at different times, but I don't know, it just seems like... And another thing, you go into a menu and your following Pokemon disappears, and it won't come back until you like change location, get another loading screen, go out a door. Like the following Pokemon, it can and will just disappear sometimes. And again, maybe quite nitpicky, but when you go to a Pokemon Center in Crystal Clear, your following Pokemon very clearly goes inside its Pokeball so it can be healed, and then it pops back out. In Pokemon Row, it just stays there. So you see Nurse Joy healing all 6 Pokeballs, but your Pokemon is not even in its Pokeball. So how is it healing? It makes no sense. It is a bit of a nitpicky thing, but I have to say, this is a Game Boy Advance game. Why is the Game Boy Color game more detailed? It probably has to do with the fact that the Game Boy Color game is maybe easier to hack, but I don't know about that, man. Like, you know, why is the Game Boy Color game from the older console like more realistic and more fluid in that way? The fact that, again, this might be a small thing to some people, but I definitely notice it every time I heal my Pokemon. Why is it not going back in a Pokeball? But in the other game it does, in the older game, if you will. Let's say more good things about Pokemon Row. It has the new updated Morville City. It does have character customization, though limited. I appreciate that it's there. It has all the Pokemon and all modern mechanics you could hope to get. Really cool menus and battle UI and health bars and stuff look really cool. The difficulty of the game has been great, honestly. Not too difficult, not too easy. I forget which mode I'm playing it on. If there is an easy mode, then I played it on easy mode, and I had a reasonable time with the game. It wasn't too hard, it wasn't too easy. It was great. I had a lot of fun playing through the gyms, exploring the Hoenn region. But I do have, I guess, one extra complaint again in comparison to Crystal Clear. In Crystal Clear, you can get 16 gym badges. You can get the Kanto badges, the Johto badges, and you can alternate between gyms. If you want to get a couple Kanto ones and then a couple Johto ones, or one of one, you can do that. So long as you have 8 badges, you can challenge the Pokemon League. Granted, if you only have 8 badges, the Pokemon League might be too difficult for you, like it was for me in Crystal Clear. So you might end up getting all 16 badges anyway. But I love the fact that you only need 8. Even if you have 7 Kanto badges and 1 Johto badge, you can go to the Pokemon League and challenge the Elite Four. Whether you succeed or not is up to you, if you have strong enough Pokemon, which you probably won't. Pokemon Row doesn't keep this. They have added 8 gyms, which I love that they've done that. So Pokemon Row also has 16 gym badges. Again, in the original Emerald games, and even in ORAS, there are only 8 gyms. So it is an amazing amount of content to be able to add an extra 8 gyms, making both Crystal Clear and Pokemon Row have 16 gyms. They didn't add a whole second region for Pokemon Row, but they added the Sevi Islands from Kanto and the 8 Johto. They added the 8 Johto gym leaders to the Sevi Islands from Kanto. Bit random. If you're going to bring a Kanto area, why not bring the Kanto gym leaders? But that's fine. They've brought the 8 Johto gym leaders, and they brought a portion of the Kanto region being the Sevi Islands. And I've never actually done the Sevi Islands, so that's very cool to be able to experience it. But I'm annoyed because I've got my 8 Hoenn badges, and to be honest, I just beat the Indigo League in Crystal Clear, so I'm not that inclined to fight the Johto gym leaders again. Not right now anyway. one day I'd love to go through this version of the Sevi Islands. It seems like probably the best way to play through them. That being said, I've just got my Hoenn badges. I would at least like to try with the 8 Hoenn gym badges I just got. I would at least like to try to fight the Elite Four. Why won't the game let me? They're saying I need 16 gym badges to challenge the Elite Four in the Pokemon League. It's never been 16 gym badges. In every piece of Pokemon canon, it's always 8 gym badges. Fair enough, there might be more you can technically get, but why do I need all 16? I don't like that. In Crystal Clear, you did not need all 16. You only needed 8 of any, and then you could go ahead and challenge the Elite Four. I was way too weak to challenge the Elite Four, so then I felt motivation to go and get 8 more gym badges. I don't mind if Pokemon Row does that. Let me challenge the Elite Four with my 8 badges. Let me get destroyed because they're too strong for me. And then I'll feel motivation to go through the Sevi Islands and the Johto gym leaders. Don't force me to. Make it realistic and give me the choice. So that is annoying, because now I can't fight the Hoenn Elite Four unless I beat the Johto League again. And I don't know if I can be bothered to do that. Especially the way that Pokemon Row has designed it is super annoying. When you start the game, you pick a starter, you get given a random boat ticket to go to one of the 8 Sevi Islands. When you go to that Sevi Island, which I think you can go to at any point, to be fair, so it is still kind of open world. You can do a Johto badge and then a freaking Hoenn badge or whatever, but it's annoying. You have to get all 16, not just 8. But yeah, anyway, you can go to the Johto badges whenever, I think. But once you do one island, you have to explore the island, which is quite big. It has wild areas and trainers to fight, till you find one character who will give you one more boat ticket. Then you go to the next island, repeat the process, beat the gym leader, find this random NPC, and then get a ticket, and so on and so forth. That is long. Why couldn't I just have tickets to all the islands and make it continuously open world? Why do I have to do all this extra? Like, I appreciate padding the game out, and it is cool content. I just wish it was optional. I wish it was optional. I'm feeling so ready to move on from Hoenn. I did enjoy my experience playing through the Hoenn region. I see why people like it. I ended up with only like one Hoenn Pokemon on my team, being Absol, but I love its design. Didn't do any Mega Evolution yet, which is again further reason for me to go through the Johto region. You know, I've never really played with Mega Evolution before, and Oras was all about Mega Evolution. So, you know, Pokemon Row, if I didn't mention, it has Mega Evolution, which of course so does Delta Emerald. Both games have a bit of a focus on it to some extent, but I just haven't used it. I don't have the right Mega Stones or whatever. But like, either way, I really did enjoy my playthrough for the Hoenn League. The gym leaders are very cool, but it's a shame. It looks like I won't be doing the Elite Four or the Champion anytime soon, because I cannot be bothered to do the Sevi Islands thing. I'm gonna try to. I'll take my time. Eventually, I'm gonna do it, but I'm in no rush. I don't know if I'll do another video about Hoenn showing the Elite Four and the Champion in this game. Maybe. We'll see. Maybe I'll end up adding it to this video before this video comes out, but I'm so ready to go to Sinnoh. You know, I've done Kanto, done Johto, and now I've done Hoenn. Done videos on all those regions, plus Galar, my home region. And now it's time for me to go back to Sinnoh, my first ever region. Lots of nostalgia for Diamond and Pearl. Played it for the first time when I was 10. Beat the game many times, but I have not played it since. So that's like 15 years since I've played these games. And I never played Platinum, only Diamond and Pearl. So very excited to play Platinum and go to Sinnoh and relive my childhood. But Hoenn, I finally did it. Was it too much water? Yes, bro. Freaking hell. I made it like to the Naughty Elephants, the eastern part of the map, trying to get to Scutopolis. That was so confusing. I had no idea you were supposed to go underwater. I had no idea. Yo, I figured out eventually, because I remember in the back of my mind hearing that like rumor or whatever, but like, bro, I could not figure that out for ages. That took way too long for me to figure out how to, like, that you had to go underwater. I could not figure it out. The water, like, I was playing through the water routes and my emulator for Pokemon Row crashed once, and it was when I had completely done the water route down to Pacifilog. Then my game crashed and I went back to Lily Cove and I had to start again. Long, bro. Like, the repels saved me for sure, but like, bro, that wasn't fun. It's just not fun. All you encounter are crappy, or they were quite good water Pokemon in this game, but like, I don't just want to keep encountering water Pokemon. I'll go fishing if I want to do that. The route is mad confusing, bro. The trying to surf from place to place, and yeah, just boring. But honestly, the fact that my game crashed made it an extra sour experience, that I had to do it twice and I couldn't figure out how to get to that one place, and yeah, too much water. Wasn't a fan. It will be easier now I know how to do it, but I think I'm done with Hoenn. It was cool, but honestly, it was the most standard experience for a Pokemon game ever. It was very standard, and shout out Hoenn, but like, I'd still prefer to play through Kanto. I think Kanto has more interesting areas, whether it's Lavender Town, whether it's the Silph Co mission. Again, I know I didn't do the storyline, to be fair, but I am watching the storyline. Mind you, I am watching Munching Orange play through Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, so I'm very familiar with, at the very least, the story to that game, which isn't that different to the story in Emerald. So I know the goings on. I'm watching the playthrough, so I know what the story is fully, and it's okay. It's not bad. It's not great. It's all very standard. You can't go wrong. Like, if you like Pokemon, you'll at least like this game. I definitely don't dislike the game. I liked playing it, but there are other ones I prefer to play. Like I said, definitely had a lot more fun playing through Crystal Clear. I just think that the regions were more interesting to me. I think that the gym leaders and Pokemon were just more iconic and more my speed. I think, yeah, just the vibes. I prefer the vibes. I like the Mew lore for Kanto. I really like the legendary beasts, and I like that lore. And Ho-Oh, he has great lore when it comes to Johto. But Hoenn, like Groudon and Kyogre, like, they're cool. They got amazing designs and they're really cool Pokemon visually, but story-wise, it's just the land Pokemon, the water Pokemon, the OGs. So, like, one team wants water everywhere, one team wants land everywhere. I don't think it's that interesting. You know, you have the Burn Tower and all that stuff with the legendary beasts and Ho-Oh. Anyone who sees it gets a lifetime of good luck. Maybe Ash, you know, has good luck because of that, and, you know, this great design, and Mewtwo, the man-made Pokemon, and Mew, the ancestor of all Pokemon. All of that stuff is so much cooler than Big Lizard. It's old. Big Fish is old. I don't know. Sorry to the Hoenn lovers, but yeah, I'm not convinced. I think so far it's my least favorite. You know, I'm super biased to Galar because it's my home region, so I loved Galar. I can't lie. I loved it. Even in the GBA format, though I did watch a Switch playthrough. But Hoenn, yeah, man, it was cool. My nephew, he's 12. He's only just now playing his first ever Pokemon game, and he picked Emerald. I need to check in with him now that I've, you know, beaten the gym challenge. I'm sure he has probably become champ by now. I want to check in with him, see what he thought, and see if I can, you know, I hope he loved it. You know, most people, if you played Emerald first, it's your favorite game, whether it's Ruby, Sapphire, whatever. From what I can tell, 9 out of 10 times, whatever Pokemon game you played first is your favorite. For me, it was Diamond Pearl. I'm willing to bet that once I replay Platinum, it will be my favorite. But if you played Emerald first, or Ruby or Sapphire, whatever, or Oras, then yeah, it's going to be your favorite, obviously. And I liked it. At the end of the day, I liked the Hoenn region, and I liked playing through it, and I liked Pokemon R.O.W.E a lot. It was a great game. And I might even be able to say I love it once I do beat the 16 gyms. I mean, technically, there's still a lot left to the game, but I did what I came to do, which was explore Hoenn fully, which I more or less did, and get the 8 gym badges. I would have liked to have beaten the Elite Four, and I probably will one day, but for now, I'm ready to move on to Sinnoh. I'm just too excited and too eager to go back to where it all started, and I'm just not a big fan of how Pokemon Rose decided to handle the Elite Four, so, you know, maybe one day we'll come back to that, and I can, if I have any additional thoughts or whatever, but I'd 100% recommend playing Pokemon R.O.W.E, especially if you've played through Hoenn before in any format. But even if you haven't, so long as you've played a Pokemon game before, I think Pokemon R.O.W.E is a great time. If you've never played a Pokemon game before, then I don't think, like, you probably shouldn't even play a ROM hack. You should just play the original, whether it's Oras or Emerald. Don't ask me between those though. If you have both options, that's where it gets tough. But assuming you've played a Pokemon game before, I say play Pokemon Row if you haven't. It is very fun. It's open world Emerald. I don't really know. Again, to me, Emerald, the Hoenn games, Ruby, Sapphire, solid games, really fun, just standard Pokemon experience. For me personally, the Kanto games just gave extra vibes. For me personally, Crystal Clear Johto gave extra vibes, and for Sinnoh, even Galar, they gave big time extra vibes. So I'm sorry to the Hoenn guys, but nevertheless, I did have a great time. I haven't been ranking the regions, and I'm not going to, but I'm just gonna sum it up by saying that like Hoenn was beautiful. I loved Lava Ridge Town and like the old women in the jacuzzi. I liked how you would go through deserts and snowstorms. I don't remember Sinnoh being like that. I could be misremembering, but like Hoenn had so many different biomes. I went through deserts, I went through snowstorms, I went through crazy extra tall grass. I went through, crazy fields and meteors and volcanoes and underwater. Like the amount of different biomes was incredible. And that was really cool to experience. Cool enough to keep going back? I don't know. But it was definitely very, very cool to experience all these different biomes. Again, you go underwater, desert, snowstorm, mountains, volcanoes. Pacific is an entire like city floating like on little logs. Or you go to Fortree, an entire town where everyone lives in tree houses. Very cool region. And I loved all the beaches. It's summertime right now, and it was giving very much holiday vibes. Not certain if I want to play through the Alola games, but I love the beach vibes that those games give, and Pokemon Row / Emerald was able to give me that. The amount of beaches in the game, really cool. Definitely love the beach vibes. I love the beach in real life, so trust me, I love it in a video game too. But the game was very relaxing to play, and I see why people love it. So shout out Pokemon Rayquaza's Open World Emerald. And I guess I can also just share my opinions about Oras and the remakes. They look great, honestly. I personally was happy to just play through a GBA ROM hack. I like the way Oras looks. I much prefer Oras in terms of its presentation and graphics over X and Y. I don't really like the art style of X and Y, even though Oras has basically the same art style. But I do like Oras's art style. I don't know what that's about, but I just prefer the graphics to Oras, or at least just the look or vibe of the game. But not enough that I was desperate to play that version. For me, not being a big fan of the Hoenn story, I just wanted to skip it and just do the gyms, and that's what Rayquaza's Open World Emerald offered me. It offered me a way to skip the tutorial, skip the story, don't have to save the world. I can just focus on a gym challenge, plus I can catch way cooler Pokemon than in the original game. And yeah, if I play through Oras, there isn't an open world version of Oras, so I'll be limited if I play the remake to basically just playing the game that I didn't like as a kid. So I'm happy I played the ROM hack. If I didn't, I wouldn't have played through Hoenn. So that's the beauty of ROM hacks. They can take a Pokemon game that you otherwise wouldn't like and make it one that you actually really do like. I didn't like the original Crystal, and Crystal Clear is my favorite Pokemon game. So shout out Pokemon Row. I had a great time. Shout out the Hoenn region. On to the next one.